What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today we're going to discuss the results of a big tournament that was held for Star Wars Unlimited in the UK. This was the OPE Star Wars Unlimited launch event, and there are some interesting results. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. Now, this we're gonna go over here and take a look at the I'm gonna go over here and take a look at the Limitless page here that's showing the information for this event. And let's go ahead and yeah, let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So this was a major tournament. It had actually pretty substantial prizes. They were doing so there were eight rounds of Swiss, and the prize for the champion was actually 4 cases. Second place was 2 cases. Third and fourth, 1 case. Top eight got 4 boxes, and there were other prizes, other card prizes throughout. There weren't cash prizes or anything, but that's a lot of product to be given out. So definitely some real value there. And while the Super Showdown Poznan was perhaps the biggest the first big tournament, this event was a exciting one as well. And I know there were some people that were even thinking about flying over to take part. But now we're going to take a look at the metagame from the event. So as we can see here, Boba Fett collecting the bounty on top, both in terms of number of people playing it. So share is what percentage of the field? Almost 20% of the field playing Boba here. And then additionally, the win percentage was very high, above 60%. So Boba did very well at this event. Next up, we had Sabine, who was also a big chunk of the meta, but didn't even have an overall positive win rate. Now, to be fair, part of this could be that I don't think Sabine matches up all that well into Boba. And with Boba having such a large share of the meta, it could be relevant. Additionally, I think that the control decks that people are playing, you see the Krennic or Iden control decks. I think those are actually not so bad against Sabine. So often control loses to aggro, but these decks have a lot of healing and they have some things that can really cause some problems for Sabine players. So Sabine's performance not as hot as perhaps people were hoping. I don't know. Yeah, and we can look at the specific matchups for Sabine here. So, Sabine did well against against some of this stuff, but against Boba, Sabine had a really weak 26% win rate. And that is not at all where you want to be. Now, I'm not sure that this is reflective of what that win rate will be once people have like fully figured out the matchup and tested more and so on. But you really do not want to have essentially a 25-75 matchup into the most popular deck in the field. It does not really make any sense. And interestingly, against Iden, we saw Sabine doing a little bit above average, but against Krennic a little bit below average. So these control matchups ended up actually being about 50-50s. Now, this isn't huge sample size, but there's still like 20 plus games played here, so it does mean at least something. Where we did see Sabine really doing well is against the sort of traditional ramp type deck, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, these decks that are taking a long time to set up. Sabine was doing very well there, but that just wasn't really the meta. So Sabine, unfortunately, I think ended up not being positioned that well for this. If we look at Boba's matchups, we'll see that Boba had an even or positive matchup against everything except for IG-88. And I think with only 3 games here, that is extremely unlikely to be a thing that will be borne out if you ended up having a larger sample size. Now, to be fair, I don't think all these matchups are that positive for Boba either, but certainly this was an extremely strong showing for Boba Fett in this tournament. Now, looking back on the overall things, we see Vader was actually in third place, which is interesting because it's a bit more of an off-meta deck in my opinion. Vader has a ramp game plan that gets you Vader deploying as a leader and Vader unit usually. These are almost always command decks. And it can be pretty good, but as we saw earlier looking at the Sabine results, this is really vulnerable to aggro. And that vulnerability to aggro is a major problem. Emperor Palpatine is sort of the same thing, but more extreme. So Vader and Palpatine, I think, can do pretty well in like sort of more control-oriented mirrors or longer games, but against the fast decks, it's a big problem. And also, if we look at this, Vader didn't end up with an overall favorable matchup against Iden, and didn't end up with an overall favorable matchup against Krennic either, which is interesting. I would have said that these two are actually some of the matchups for which you want to be playing Vader. So the fact that it wasn't even getting the win there, um, again, not a huge sample size, but we still have like 20 something games against Iden, more than 10 against Krennic here. Um, it'll be interesting to do some more testing and figuring that stuff out, trying to see whether there's something missing, or what exactly is going wrong with these Vader decks when they're not only are they vulnerable to aggro, they're not actually winning the control mirrors as consistently as you would hope. Similarly, you would hope that with a Vader deck you'd be beating Bobas, but that's not really happening at this event either. With about a 40% win rate. You would hope that by playing a deck that was that little bit slower but more powerful, you'd be securing the win. But it didn't seem like that was what was happening one way or another. So while Vader was highly represented, his performance was not great with an overall about 42-43% win rate. Iden did a little better, a little bit behind Vader in representation, close to a 50% win rate. Looking at the matchups here, we see that Iden did very well against Chirrut and Thrawn, and then had, like very favorable win rates against some of these less played decks, Cassian, Tarkin, Han, Chewie. Did well against Vader, which actually surprises me. I tend to think that Vader should be advantaged against Iden, but did well against Leia, did did well, did at least decently well here. Lost a little bit to Sabine, but still like pretty close to 50-50, which is not at all bad for control against aggro. But was struggling a bit with Boba, which is a matchup that should be, again, one of the reasons to play these sorts of control decks is to have an advantage over mid-range decks like Boba. So if you're playing something like that and you're not beating the thing that you're supposed to be countering, I don't know. There's something going on there one way or another, and maybe you need to do some more testing and figure out stuff for that matchup in particular. Maybe it's not as good as a matchup as people think, but interesting overall outcome. And we could keep going down here and breaking down different leaders and so on. But overall, Boba, Sabine, and Vader were the three most popular decks, with Boba doing the best, Sabine not doing that great, and Vader actually doing pretty poorly. Iden and Leia were next up. Leia actually did better than Sabine, which so there is actually a factor here that I think is pretty relevant. I could be wrong, but I'm currently of the opinion that Rebel aggro decks need to be playing Tarkentown at this phase, and that playing ECL is a mistake. I know that's going to be controversial. I'm going to have another video coming out soon that explains that in more detail. But Leia naturally plays Tarkentown in the most standard aggro composition, and I think that is likely better than having ECL as your base at this point. I know that sounds weird. I know some people have claimed the exact opposite, but I'm going to have a video coming out soon, maybe even today, that will go into that in more detail and hopefully get some more information. So those are some of the metagame breakdowns. So least popular leader was IG88. I think it looks like there was only one person playing IG88, with Boba being the most popular. So yeah, so then looking at the final standings, there's something that immediately jumps out, and that is if you look at the top eight, every single player in top eight was on Boba. So Boba swept the top eight of the event, and that is an extremely strong performance for Boba Fett, and I think it definitely puts Boba into position as the deck to beat. So if you're going to some other big tournament or something, I think you need to either be playing Boba or having a plan to beat Boba at this point. And if you're playing something that's notably bad against Boba, you should probably switch decks. But yeah, I say that, and I know it sounds extreme, and I know some people are going to be like, "No, I'm going to play what I want." That's totally fine. You can play whatever you want. You can play whatever deck you are best with. You can play whatever deck you most like. But at this point, I think if you are trying to win the event, given both the prevalence and success of Boba Fett, it is not prudent to play a deck that is notably weak to Boba Fett. It's not a matchup you can, I think, realistically plan to dodge. And so you need to have some kind of game plan for how to actually beat that. Um, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but with results like this, I think a lot of people are going to be looking towards Boba for the next big tournaments. Okay, so if we go to the pairings, Unfortunately, these are not broken out by leader, but we do see, so in the final, the final here, the ultimate winner with Boba was playing against Luke. In this match, this person who won and went 7-1 with Boba was playing against Iden. This person was playing a Boba mirror. This person was playing against Palpatine, actually. So there was a 6-2 Palpatine. Congrats to Simon Harvey there for putting up a good result with a less popular leader. Uh, this person was playing against Boba. This person was playing against Leia. This person was playing against Iden. So we did actually have a range of decks that were making it to the we did have a range of decks that were kind of making it to the final round there, but the Bobas were very successful in those last rounds and ended up sweeping top 8. So overall, a really strong performance for Boba Fett, and I feel like at this point, um, I personally do not think that these numbers are correct in not not in the sense that like this is misreported. I totally believe these are the numbers for the event. I do think that as the meta becomes more developed and people get more experience, I suspect that Boba's win rate will not be this high, especially against some of those control decks. I could be wrong though. It could be Boba's just amazing. But certainly this event is a strong point of evidence in favor of Boba Fett being at the top of the meta. Which is not what I personally would have said prior to the event, but it's really, really something I think that people are going to have to consider. So yeah, those were the results from the organized play event, Star Wars Unlimited launch event. And I will also say, so this was a no cut format. This was like 8 rounds Swiss. So we are but I believe it was 8 rounds Swiss, 2 out of 3s. Yeah, it was. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens as we see other large tournaments, especially ones where they'll have like a cut and have an elimination round and so on. But overall, I think the results of this event are strong evidence in favor of Boba Fett being something to watch out for and something that you should be planning for when you're going to events for Star Wars Unlimited. All right, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks to y'all for watching, and we'll be back later with some more Star Wars Unlimited content, including my probably controversial video about why Rebel Aggro needs to be running Tarkin Town. All right, thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys later.